I was 33 years old, well over 400 pounds, and food was my prison. And then I learned that food had the answer to my questions, and my kitchen had the cure for my disease. When I was 400 plus pounds, and I don't have an exact number because I had actually blown past the scales that all had that weight limit. Life was all about the food. I was deeply struggling with a processed food addiction. There was this little voice inside me that said, if you don't do something, you will not make it to 40 years old. And that's when I really just fell in love with the idea of how can I be my best self? So I was fighting for me and fighting for my health. When I went plant-based, my whole relationship with food changed. I realized how much better I was feeling. I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. That's magic to me. And the weight just sort of slowly melted away, which is something I never thought was possible. Now, food prepping for me is a joy. I celebrate the quality of the food. It's just very rewarding. Healing starts at home. Mine did. And so can yours.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marvis, and today I'm excited to really share a really amazing transformational story with Alishea Basson. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's exciting to hear your story because these really encourage people to really take on the big task of, getting their health under control and losing the excess weight. So why don't we start back to your journey? What led to the excess weight, or where were you before you made that transition?
Okay, so I grew up in Southern Virginia with a very Southern typical cuisine all the time. And unbeknownst to me, I was learning some dysfunctional behaviors in youth around food in celebratory ways, food in mourning, food when you're sad, when you're bored. And those habits, I just picked them up and I kept them into adulthood, and they became my coping mechanism because that's what I was taught. When you're sad, you eat. When you're happy, you eat. And you don't eat things that are good for you. You eat lots of comfort food. I had a teen pregnancy. I got pregnant at 17, and I did not know how to gain weight healthy. I only knew how to gain weight poorly. And I was taught that when you're pregnant, you're supposed to eat. You're eating for 2. I was eating for like 20, but I was just going with that old adage. So with my first pregnancy at 17, I gained 60 pounds, and I never lost it because it never correlated in my mind that you were supposed to lose the weight after you had the baby. It was just understood that once you started having kids, you were going to gain weight, and that was the end of the story. So I had one at 17, I had another one at 22, and it just kept going. And each time I would gain and I wouldn't lose it. So I got to 30 years old with 4 kids, and I was 277 pounds. I had high cholesterol, I had high blood pressure, I had seizure, my hair was falling out. The doctors were really pushing me to be on medication, and that scared me because my grandmother had open heart surgery probably about 3 times at this point, and I had saw how that worked out, and I didn't want that at such a young age. But I didn't pick it up in my mind that I could control it with, like, I thought weight loss wasn't possible. It just didn't seem attainable. But then I started watching documentaries. I drank the Kool-Aid and watched What the Health on Netflix. Scared me to death, but it didn't scare me enough not to go to McDonald's and get a double cheeseburger. I still did it. But the seed was planted, and I started to do research. And after walking out of my home and falling down from the weight of me, like I literally, my legs gave out, I was desperate, and I just was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't keep doing what I've always done.
Mm. Mm. So that was how long ago? What year was that?
That was in 2017.
Okay, so about 5 years ago. So the body just said enough is enough, and you're like, this is it. They have to make a choice. There literally was your
Yes.
fork in the road. And so what did you do?
So, well, here's the thing.
Mm.
That in particular day, when I went to bed that night for dinner that night, I had the typical conversation with my husband where we're like, what's for dinner? And, we're going back and forth, and he's like, okay, let's do Popeyes. I'm like, oh, great, Popeyes. That sounds good. So he's like, what do you want me to get? And I was like, I don't know. But then we looked online, we saw a coupon where you buy 11 pieces and you get 11 pieces. So I was like, ooh, that's good. It's a good deal. Mind you, there was only 2 adults and 4 small children. So that was too much food. But I remember he brought the food in, and he got biscuits. I love biscuits. I'm a real Southern woman. I love a biscuit. He got 12 biscuits. So I ate 7 pieces of chicken, and not little pieces. I'm talking full on breasts and thighs, like big hunks. And I think I ate 6 biscuits and a pint of Haagen-Dazs. And I laid it. Now, first of all, I choked on it because I was eating it so fast. I choked. My husband tried to perform the Heimlich on me, but he couldn't do it because I had such a large midsection. So I literally had to reach down in my own throat and go get it to stop myself from choking. Wow. So I laid down that night, and I felt like, okay, this is out of control. I'm out of control. This is bad. And I felt shame. But I woke up in the morning and I laid there, and I was like, I can't do that again. Like, that was my singular thought. I cannot do that again. I don't want to feel that ever again. So I said, today, I'm just going to choose breakfast different. I don't know what a healthy breakfast is, but I know what a not healthy breakfast is. So I just chose not to do what I typically did. So I just woke up and I said, I'm going to have oatmeal and eggs. I think that's what I had the first day, and maybe some fruit, which was totally different than what I normally would have had, because normally I would have had 2 croissants, a couple scrambled eggs with cheese, 2-3 big, huge cups of coffee that were really just creamer and sugar with a touch of coffee. So I just started the first day with the first meal.
Awesome. So that's how you started, one step at a time. And then how did your knowledge grow? How did your actions grow? Like, how did you do this with little kids? There's so much to your story.
Oh, yes. So with me, I started out just kind of deconstructing everything that I had already in place in my life, knowing that what I was doing wasn't right. So I just slowly started backing away from that, not really knowing what I was going to replace it with, but just knowing that I had to stop doing that stuff. And as I was going through, I was really listening to my body. I was very, very intuitive to how I was starting to feel. And the moment where I started to feel like life bubbling up in me, energy, I was chasing that because I was like, whoa. And it would always come in like little spurts. And I'm like, I want more of that. And I started educating myself, reading books, watching more documentaries about health. And I was like, oh, that's what that is. And it was a slow build, but the information, it was like information overload in the beginning, but it was so much where I knew, I was like, okay, I can't do all of this today, but I can take little bits and pieces and just apply it where it's feasible in my life. Now, as I was doing this with me, I was still preparing the food for my family as I normally would. And that was fine. I was resolved that that was going to be the case. I wasn't going to force my choice on everyone. And then I started exercising, which meant that I was going to have to get up at like 5 a.m. to get to the gym as soon as they open, work out for an hour, and then be home by the time my husband had to leave to go to work, and then start the day with all the children. But I was okay with that because I remember being a couch mom and the guilt of literally just like screaming at my kids to please stay in the living room because I can't chase you up the stairs. Please don't go outside the door, like literally corralling them in gates because I physically couldn't chase them. So the fact that I had to be up and I was moving around and I was active and I could be, I didn't mind it. I loved it. I loved being able to. So it took about, I'll say 7 to 8 months. Within 7, 8 months, I lost about 60 pounds. It was fast. Like people were like, what is happening? Because I literally was just, I made a complete turn. Like there was no hesitation. It was a complete turn. So I lost that big chunk of weight. And then I watched Forks Over Knives. That was my like precipice vegan documentary. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to do it. But I was still kind of hesitant. But then I watched Dominion, and then I was sold. I was like, if athletes can do it, I can do it. So, but I knew it had to be gradual because everything I had done up to this point had been gradual. So that was in August. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make a New Year's resolution. January 1st, I'm not gonna eat anymore. I'm gonna be totally plant-based. So from August to January, I just slowly started taking away things as I'm still preparing it for my family. So I just took out the stuff that I knew I wasn't fond of. I was like, oh, I can kick out pork. Never been my jam. I can kick out beef. It's fine. But I held on to chicken and cheese until the very end. I chicken and cheese myself to death to the point where I'm totally fine never eating that again because I ate it so much for like 2 months. And that was just how it went. I stopped. I made the announcement at my in-laws' house on Thanksgiving. I don't encourage anyone to ever do that, especially if your in-laws live in Tennessee. Don't do that. It's not a good idea to announce it in front of the whole family that you're going to go vegan when there's a big old turkey on the table. So they had all the questions and I didn't have answers, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I didn't let their questions stop me or hinder me, or the fact that my husband was like, I don't understand, because his lack of understanding, it just complemented the fact that I didn't understand, but I just felt led to do it. So I did it. So everyone else's lack of understanding didn't mean a thing because I didn't even know why. I just knew I wanted to try. So that's what I did. And it was literally the one New Year's resolution in all of my 36 years that actually stuck.
It's fantastic. So this was New Year's of 2018?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to lose how much more additional weight?
Oh my gosh, that was, so at that point, then it just really started to come off. And that was 85 pounds more after that.
Wow.
And I was just like, it was like, I couldn't, it was effortless. And I'm like, man, why didn't I know about this years ago? Like this, like, why didn't someone give me the secret when I was 17, 18 years old? Because it was so quick and so fast. And the reward, I didn't care that the scale was going down. I just felt so incredibly good. I felt like I could run. I slept better. I didn't have any more seizures. I went to see my doctor and I never knew he was vegan until I announced that I was vegan. And he was like, oh, good for you. And I was like, do I got to come back next year? He's like, not really. If you're feeling good and you keep doing everything that you're doing, I don't need to see you. And normally I go to the doctor and they're like, oh yes, we need to see you back next month. We need to check this and check that. Yeah. But that was the first time where he was just like, yeah, you're good. You're fine. I don't know. So yeah, it just was a quick, for me, it was the first, but this wasn't my first time trying to lose weight. I had tried in the past in very, very unhealthy ways. But this was the one time where it stayed because I wasn't chasing a number. I was chasing a feeling.
Yes. And so that feeling is alive, right? It's the energy, the like, oh, I've been missing this my whole life. It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So now tell me a little bit about that. How's the family? Because now you have 5 babies, so you've had another one
Mhm.
since. So what are their
Yes.
ages and your husband, and who's on board, who's not, and how's that going?
Okay, so my husband's 46. No, wait, is he 46? He's 46? He's 45. I'm 36. He's 45. He's 45. He's a carnivore. And that's fine. I have an 18-year-old. I have an 11-year-old. I have a soon to be 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. The 2-year-old is the only one who is plant-based with me because he was plant-based in utero. So he just came out and he's been my little plant-based buddy. But as far as the other ones, they're always very, very intrigued by what I eat because it smells so good and it's so colorful, which is fun sometimes. But sometimes I'm like, I really had made this with the intention of eating it all and not sharing. But yeah, they're interested. And at the bare minimum, that's totally fine for me because I believe in the law of exposure. Once you're exposed to something, you can't be unexposed. So since they see everything, at some point in life, bless you, they will they may or may not come back to it.
Yeah,
Get away.
they're peeking in on mom again.
Mhm.
No, absolutely. So I have 3, not 5, but they're older, but they were teenagers 10 years ago when we went on a plant-based diet, and they were 18. See, Jonathan was 15 and 13. And so now they're 28, 26, almost 24, and all plant-based. So the encouraging thing to do, and I'll just share with my experience, was at home, we all stayed plant-based. And my husband actually, he went plant-based as well. It's been 10 years. My daughter's actually a physician in a residency. What we did was at home, we ate plant-based. At outside the home, they did what they wanted. And what was nice about that is they had some independence, but at home, at least I was not being a short order cook and cooking multiple things. If my husband would have wanted something, I'd have been said, well, there's the kitchen. That's how
Mm.
because I was, working and doing all these different things. I just couldn't find the time or energy, but that worked out well. Some others, have chosen a different path and it worked out fine too. But yeah, it's just so important that like you said, the exposure, because their health really, like you want them to learn the healthy behaviors that you didn't, because it can have such a profound effect. So is your
Mhm.
husband shown any interest at all in joining you?
No. My
Oh,
husband, I really wish he would, but he just has going plant-based would be such an extreme because he is
mm,
such an animal-based eater. He does
mm,
not, it's not even an afterthought. It's never on the plate. It's just not there. I have tried with him in the past, but
mm,
it is an uphill battle. So
gotcha.
rather than fight that, I just feel like I got to fight my own
Yep,
myself and
yep. Do
let
your
people live
thing.
their life.
I
Yeah.
love it. And your little one, so it's interesting. So has the little one shown an interest in eating other stuff that maybe the other kids are, or is that
Absolutely not.
the 2-year-old's happy to eat whatever mom's eating?
All the time and
Oh.
and very forcefully, and he's like, give it all to me. So he has no interest. Even like when we tried to give him a cake for his birthday, he's
Mm,
like pushing it on the floor. He's like, where's the pineapple? I'm not.
yep.
So
Oh, that's
it's good to
fantastic.
see that, when you start them on that, that's what they go for. What you put them on is what they go for. So
Exactly. Others too that have raised babies since plant-based, and then they go out when they're in school age. What they've said is they allow them to make choices at the school parties, but then they don't feel good. So they eat the cake and they're like, well, that didn't go well. And they had the
mhm.
bad feeling, right? So they were they like, I don't want that bad feeling, versus you were chasing the good. They already feel good and then they feel bad. So that's that's an intriguing thing that happens as well. So awesome. And then as far as what have you done on a regular day-to-day basis? Like how do you prep your food? All of the things that are going on in your household. Tell us, like, what are your secrets to being successful staying plant-based in this situation?
Okay, so I bulk cook everything for myself. And I used to try to do it for like the whole week, but I eat a lot. Like I eat a massive amount of food. So now I just do it for like every 3 days or so. So I'll make a big batch of quinoa. I'll make a big pot of lentils or chickpeas. I use my air fryer religiously for like tempeh and tofu. I make stews, soups, anything that I can eat on for long, like over a few days is what I do. I love overnight oats. That's one of my, it's like my go-to breakfast. And I like to get my produce home, wash it and chop it up, get it all ready, like right then. I just invest the time right there. And I'm not trying to make it look cute. I'm just trying to get it bite-sized so that I can eat it. So that I just do simple things, like a little bit of prep work goes a long way for me.
Yeah.
And I've gotten, because I do this daily, I'm fast. So what would normally take someone a little time, I can do multiple things and do this for cooking and get it all done. I also I have windows for when I eat, so I don't eat until 11 and I stop eating at 7. I do intermittent fasting just because it works with how I intuitively eat. So because I only eat within an 8-hour window, I don't really got to worry about, cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm pretty much like, if I can just get 2 big meals in, I'm good.
That's awesome. So then the kids, do they come in and see that? Because I know there are times in my house when especially the boys, blueberries, that's like my favorite food on earth. But they would get down to the last carton, and if you put it in there, if I didn't put a note, this is mom's, don't touch, or there will be someone's paying the price. What do you do with the fresh? I'm sure you encourage it, but do they come in and sweep it up? I'm just so curious about that.
So because there are so many of us in this house, and even if you put a note on something in here, yeah, that's not going to deter the crazy. So in the winter around here in Virginia, that gets a little tight. But right now, because there are so many farmers markets right now,
yeah,
I'm at farmers markets every day or two. And because right now peaches are really big. The peaches are right now are like, oh, they're amazing. So I buy a massive amount, knowing that everyone is going to devour them. And then I don't want them to hear me. So I'll take like 1 or 2 and put them up underneath like the mangoes, because nobody wants mangoes but me and the little one. And I'm just like, okay, there we go. And like sometimes it works, sometimes they're like super inquisitive and they like pick through everything, but I just hit my farmers markets very, very frequently.
And the reason they don't want mangoes, is it too much work to
yes, they don't want to cut it. Yeah, they're not going to cut it. They're like, if it's cut up in the fridge, it's fair game, but if it's in the fruit, nah, they're like, no, it's too much work.
That's funny. And then as far as your kids, are any of them in sports or activities and those type of things?
So prior to the pandemic, we did have them in softball and Girl Scouts and all sorts of different kinds of things. But unfortunately, those types of things are just now starting to come back like fully around here. And as soon as everything opened up, we live in a highly populated metropolitan area. It like the slots filled up super fast. So we're just waiting to see. We're like waitlisting and seeing like different things. But since they don't really have the opportunity to do like organized sports, we've spent a lot of time outside exploring our hiking trails and all of the historic areas around us, because this is Virginia, so you see a lot of historic stuff around here. So we've just taken the time to do educational nature stuff that way, and they have fallen in love with it.
Virginia's beautiful. I was stationed at Langley. I was active duty Air Force. And where do you live in Virginia?
We live right outside of DC. We live in Prince William County, Woodbridge. Okay. So we're like right in the middle to where we can get to like literally so many things.
Oh my gosh, the history. I loved living in Virginia. the kids, exposing them to all up and down the East Coast was just really cool. I mean, that was really cool. Awesome. So the kids like hiking and all that stuff, that's fantastic. That's such a beautiful thing, because they'll continue to love that even as they become adults. It's a beautiful thing. Awesome. So have you, I noticed also on Facebook, you had started some other things, some, sharing with people, and how is that going? Has anyone reached out to you and said, wow, look at this amazing result. Can you help me? Or what is your advice for folks like that? That's pretty cool.
Wow. So when I first started sharing things on social media in any capacity, like it just randomly, I guess my story resonated with so many women that they were just like, help me, help me, help me. And I'm like, okay. So I started doing like online coaching, health and fitness coaching. And that was great. I loved it. The interaction, hearing people's stories and giving them ideas of how to do this. And when it just seems like everything is stacked against you, when your family is against you, when your community, when you're literally like standing somewhere and you want to change, but nobody around you wants to change. So it's been very rewarding to be a light to people and share like, hey, you can do this. It's not easy. It's the harder road, but it is a road that I have walked and I know you can too. And that's been great. But as I've grown with my wellness side, my fitness side increased too, because I became like super, like I love working out now. I don't know where that came from. Well, actually I know where it came from. I had so much energy, I had to put it somewhere. So I fell in love with fitness, and actually just yesterday I passed my my certified personal trainer exam.
Oh, congratulations.
So, thank you. So I'm going to be I'm accepting clients, and like everything has been like going so fast. So many people are reaching out and I'm like, oh, I got 5 kids. Slow down, slow down.
Yes, absolutely. Well, 1 kid isn't up with 5, especially with the range of ages. My goodness. And so what is your goals with the fitness training?
Since I started this thing, I didn't think, but I've just kind of been led in this direction. Is I know that there are a lot of people like me who just couldn't do better because they didn't know better. And I really want to reach out to the version of me that I was when I didn't know. I want to find those people who just honestly didn't know, who had no hope, who had no idea, who just didn't know. And I want to educate about wellness, about healing our bodies through what we put in our bodies and how we move our bodies. That's my goal, to just get out here and motivate, influence, and inspire people to literally be the change they want to see.
That's fantastic. I love that. Be the change you want to be. So when you're first, let's say you were meeting someone who was just like you were 5-6 years ago, what's that first interaction look like? What are you telling that person? Because you know the pains and the struggles that they are going through. What's going to be your words to them?
So the first thing that I like to do, I don't like to talk. I like to listen, because I want to hear their story. Because I could assume the pain, but when you come out of things, sometimes you're so far away from it that it's you remember that it hurt, but you don't remember the pain of it. You know what I'm saying? So I like to hear the person's story. And after I've heard, the first thing I want to say, I ask, or I say to them is, you can get out of this, because I always hear, I can't get out. This is so hopeless. I've tried so many times. You can, but we just got to take it slow, because I feel like the biggest problem that so many people have is they feel like they've got to do it all in a very short time frame. When I took off the lens of, I've got to get this weight off in 3 months, it literally came off in 3 months when I stopped thinking about the time. So I always encourage people, stop thinking about the time. Just do the habits every single day. Don't focus on anything else. And then I'm like, one day you're going to get on the scale, it's going to shock you, but don't get wrapped up in that. Just keep doing the things. Keep doing the things. But it never fails. I encourage people to start habits, and literally within a week they jump on the scale and they call me. They're like, "Oh my God, I lost 10 pounds. This is so amazing." I'm like, "Yes, keep going." And then they're like, and then it's just, they get wrapped up in the scale, and I'm like pulling them back, like, "Come on, I'm going to have to come to your house and take your scale if you keep getting on it." And it's just habits. I'm like, just do small habits every single day.
And that's absolutely true. Tell me about your workouts. 'Cause people are going to definitely be interested in what you do on a day-to-day basis.
So what I do now is sort of kind of advanced, but it's taken years to build up to this. I started out with just walking. That was literally 5-10 minutes. And I've built on that over the years. Now I strength train, like I split strength train about 6 days a week. And then I have one active recovery day, but I do lots of endurance strength training and cardio, body weight cardio, because I feel like it's very, very important for us to be able to lift and hold our body weight since we are carrying it around. So I do that a couple of days a week. And I do a lot of mobility work and stability work because there's been a lot of joint replacements in my family, and I'm not really interested in having to have a knee or a hip or a rotator cuff, manipulated with surgery. So I do that quite a bit.
Awesome. So what does it mean to be, when you're describing body weight and cardios together, or weight training with cardio, what does that look like for people who aren't familiar?
So it's like, I'll do Pilates. I don't know if people are familiar with that, where you're doing a lot of lengthening with your body weight and holding yourself up. I do plyometric work, which is jumping, kind of like bouncing, hopping on your own weight. And then like a lot of proprioceptive work, where you're kind of falling with your weight, but catching yourself and then pulling yourself back and controlling the speed. So it's kind of hard to explain, but if you were to see it, you'd be like, "Oh, I know what that is." So if you were thinking like someone doing aerobics, step aerobics, little things like that, that's probably the best way to explain it.
Cool. And then when you learned that, was that part of your personal training experience, or did you learn that from someone else?
It was just over the years. I've been fortunate enough to work with some very, very good trainers. And when you're working with personal trainers, you learn a lot if you go in with the mindset to learn. And I am a forever learner. So when people talk, I'm listening. So I learned that over the years because just by nature, I have a very inquisitive nature. So when a trainer is telling me to do something, my first why? I want to know why. So I've just been fortunate enough that I've been with people who have been more than willing to explain to me why they have me do things, for like frequency, for the purposes, like how this is going to help in my day-to-day life. I've just been very, very fortunate to be around people who were willing to explain.
And that's very good. I love that you learned, because curiosity is a superpower for sure. As far as the kids, I love, because there's so many moms out here, and that's going to come back, that 5 kids. It's a great piece of your story. Have any of them saw the transition in you, especially your older ones? And what did they say? I mean, they must be so proud of you.
So they were just like, "Mom, what happened? You just changed so much." And like, they've literally had a front seat. They've had the moments where it was not pretty. They've seen it all. I've been very, very open so that they could see someone literally pulling themselves up. And with them seeing that, they've seen a level of strength that they know is possible. And they say that all the time. They're like, "Mom, you're so strong, and like you can do anything, and your mind is so strong." And they say that about me. But the funny thing is, I see that in them as they're interacting with one another. And even as they went through an entire year of virtual learning, they were literally so tenacious in everything that they did. They attacked everything that came at them with the same tools that they saw me using. They used their words. They were okay to say, "You know what, today I'm not okay." And another day I'm feeling good. And you know what, right now I can't do this and I need a break, but I can come back. They literally were modeling everything they saw
Mm,
me do. And that was
mm,
that was a full circle moment.
yeah, that must have been a really awesome moment when you see those things over and over again.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. So you- we're coming up in around 40 minutes. Try to keep these around 45 to be respectful of time, especially because I know your kids want to go hiking and all that stuff. Tell me a little bit, I always like to ask, what bit of advice would you give someone who's maybe teetering on making a decision to do something like this? What advice do you give to someone to just kind of pull them and nudge them in this direction? What would you suggest?
I would suggest just try it for 7 days or 30 days, because that's what I did. I did it for
Mm,
30 days and felt so good that it just was like, yeah. Because that was the whole New Year's resolution thing. I was like, I'm just going to do it for 30 days. Because you got to give yourself a parachute when you're jumping out of airplanes. So I was like, just 30 days. And one thing I always encourage people when they're going down the journey of being plant-based is it is a journey.
mm,
Please don't look at people like me or people who have been in this way of eating for years and assume that that's where you got to be. It's not. When I started out, I was eating all the faux meats. I was replacing it with all the cheeses until I learned that I just didn't like that stuff. And that's okay.
mm.
That was a part of the process. I don't want anyone to come into this and be like, I got to be an alkaline raw vegan straight out the gate. No, you don't. You don't. You start wherever you start. And I promise you, just like with the standard American diet, it adjusts, it will adjust. All you got to
Mm,
do is start, and
mm.
don't criticize yourself and be too critical or feel like you have to compare where you are in the beginning to where someone is decades down the road.
Mm. The comparison, and it's so hard to do in this society because social media, all the, with patients especially, they're like, well, I just read this story and they were able to reverse their diabetes and so quickly. I was like, you know what you're reading is a couple of paragraphs of years of their story. You don't know what that journey was like. So be kind to yourself. Absolutely. So thank you for your time, Alishea. And how can we find you? We'll put the links also in the description below, but where can someone find you?
So the best place to find me, I do have a Facebook, but I rarely go on there. But if you search me up on Instagram, Alishea Basson, I'm right there.
And that's where they can look for you if they were interested in getting you as a
Yes.
personal
At the
trainer. So
moment, I'm working on getting a website up, but I didn't think I needed to do this stuff this fast, but I'm working on it. Like, I don't have a team, so I'm doing all this stuff by myself.
I feel your pain. I totally understand. So I totally get it. So, well, thank you again for your time, and everyone take a listen, share this with someone who needs to be encouraged and have a great story and inspiration. So you were definitely that. So thank you again for your time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Before you go though, please hit the subscribe and alert buttons so you don't miss out on any of the amazing content we're working so hard to provide you. We upload a new episode of Health and More with Dr. Lori Marbus every Friday. Now, if you'd rather listen to the podcast, you can find us on all the major platforms such as iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and even Spotify. If you're looking for amazing resources to help you start and sustain a plant-based diet, exercise, recipes, or anything wellness, we got you covered there too. Because at Mora, we actually provide physician-led support groups to help people live happier, healthier lives, free of metabolic disease. Don't forget to check out our website at mora.com, and thanks again for watching.